the cam. And good Saturday afternoon to everybody. I'm Stephanie Brown from Intelligent Construction Opportunities. We've got a great guest today for this Saturday. It's Ron Nussbaum. I'm sure lots of LinkedIn followers and content creators are aware of Ron and all the great things he's doing. Ron and I met each other only a couple of weeks ago now. And once again, I'm always impressed when a contractor comes out of the box and they're the ones building the apps, because they really understand the context of what they're building it for. And of course, that's why Intelligent Construction Opportunities exists, to bridge that gap between the construction professional and the people building the apps. And I love it even more when they really understand the construction professionals and the specific roles and why and who they're creating these applications for. So welcome, Ron.
Hey, Stephanie, it is great to be here, and I'm super excited to talk today.
Terrific. Well, we're going to get right into it right off the bat. And I want you to tell the folks a little about yourself and who you were as a contractor and what brought you around to building this app, because there are some of you out there that do it, but that's a big leap.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ron Newcomb. When I got out of the Marine Corps in 2011, I was looking like, what's this transition look like? And I found myself looking at this Craigslist ad for a foreman in training, and I applied. I ended up getting the job. And that was really my start in construction. And I've done everything from running the jackhammer to running the company. And I dealt with a lot of escalated customers, or I like to say pissed off customers, and I didn't want to. And it really led me into a deep dive into why does the construction industry have a really bad reputation for customer experiences? Why is it that every customer you talk to almost wouldn't recommend their contractor or builder to their friends or family? And what I found when I dove into that was it was very rarely the guys, very rarely the work, but 90% of the time I could track that back to a communication breakdown at some point in time where that customer wasn't talking to the right person, or the ball just got dropped. I like to say, sticky notes got made, and we all know where sticky notes go. And I took too many phone calls where people would go on the website and see me and say, this is the guy I need to talk to. He obviously knows what's going on here. And I was the worst person to talk to.
So tell us a little bit more about that. So give us an example. Give us a real life example without naming names or throwing anybody under any buses.
I would have homeowners call me up and be like, hey, Ron, I'm over on 1235 Ferry Lane, and this project's going. The guys were here yesterday. I don't know if they're coming today. I have a lot of issues with the work that's been done so far and what the sales process was to what's happening now that the guys are on site. And I have to be like, oh, hold on a minute here. Like, I understand what you're talking about. But I am like not the person to talk to. Let me figure out who's in charge of this project. And like, well, you're the one in charge of the company. Aren't you in charge of the project? Like, well, I mean, we have 30 crews. We're doing over 100 projects a week. I apologize, but I'm not the person. Like, this is not, so customers think they're going to the right person, but they weren't. So what
And we're
I do,
talking residential. Sorry for cutting you, but let's make sure the audience knows what kind of builds are we talking about. We're talking strictly residential or
yeah,
commercial or a mix or what?
strictly residential.
Okay, so these are people that have contracted, or let's even talk about what was your company. Your company was a residential home builder.
Yeah,
Let's
we were a residential foundation, basement, crawl space repair company. So we
okay.
did everything below grade.
Okay. And so your customers would be coming to you for what kind of services? And so therefore, if you're running 100 projects a week, let's let the audience understand, okay, what's your experience and your background in this?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think anything below grade of a house, that is what we would do. Whether it was foundation, structure repairs, bowing
Repair.
walls to basement waterproofing and to crawl space encapsulation and everything in between that, like I said, anything below grade, I've been there and done it when it came to being underneath a house.
Got it. Okay. So therefore, the people that were in charge of managing those problems, which could be leaky basements or what have you, would be who? So continue.
So we ran a staff would consist of field supervisors to foremen to crew guys.
Mm-hmm.
And same kind of setup on the sales side as well, where you'd have sales guys, sales managers, or sales supervisors, and then a sales manager. So there was layers of leadership as well as accountability. And homeowners tend to go directly to the top because they think that's who can answer their questions, when it's actually kind of backwards. The guy on site probably can answer your questions better than that third tier leadership at a company, but homeowners don't understand that because they don't have no way to know who to talk to.
Correct.
And it's kind of at the core of BuilderComs, is that air traffic control, because that's what I had to get figured out. Is you have to figure out how to get your customers to talk to the right people at your company to start even getting communication right. Because if the wrong people are talking to the wrong people, it's just a disaster from a communication perspective. And I would take these calls, I would write down a sticky note. I'm human. So you're going to have 50% of these are going to fall through the cracks, because what happens? You're walking through the building, you take a phone call, you create this sticky note, and then something else comes up that's a higher priority at the time. And then next thing, a day later, you have a 5 alarm fire because you dropped the ball, because the customer reached out to you and then you didn't get to say that field supervisor or that foreman to have the conversation with them about what's happening on that job site to figure out what the course of action needs to be. So as usual, as leadership in a company, we're the roadblock. We cause more problems than we fix. So I had to figure out, like, how do I take myself out of the equation? Because here I am, I'm creating more of a problem every time somebody calls me. Now I'm involved. Guys don't want me involved. They want to be able to handle it. It's why they're in the roles they're in, is because they should be able to handle these escalated customers. But then I get involved. And like I said, you have to figure out, how do you take yourself out of the equation? One of the great things that I look at is, like, communication's never been scalable. Communication has always been the reason why stuff breaks down. And in the construction industry, we've let that be okay. I've literally used this as an excuse, is, hey, sorry, we're just growing. We're really busy. We're growing. Our communication, it's just not there. Like, to me, like, that's unacceptable, but we use it as an acceptable excuse. So
Right.
that's one
As
of the,
many things in construction, just keep doing what it is, because of course the building eventually goes up, and that was the reason for the outcome, and how you got there didn't matter. But so I want to make a nice segue here into, okay, so you were running 100 projects. It dawned on you that, like, in that one scenario, you were thinking about, maybe we have a problem here, Houston, and we've got to fix it. So what made you take the leap from where you were to building this app, and how did you even know how to do it?
That is a fantastic question, Stephanie. So one night I was laying in bed and it just hit me. Is like, if I just had software that worked as air traffic control, got everybody talking to the right people, and got rid of all the emails and text messages and got everything in one place, so I could see what was happening, it would make the construction industry completely different. We could solve a 40-year plus problem that all we've done is talk about it being a problem. I got out of bed. I created a haphazard, at best, PowerPoint presentation on what I thought this would look like. And I went down the road of developing this. And, I heard a lot of no's. This is in 2020. And software developers were flush with people with IDs that wanted to bring stuff to market. And I'm this Marine and this construction guy. And they're like, you're not the guy to build this out. And I was like, well, that's the problem. I am the guy because I'm the guy with the problem. So I'm the right person to build this software. And,
So
it was
how did you learn to code, or did you actually get a developer? I mean, how did you start to put the realistic pieces together? Because I couldn't agree with you more. I'm doing more and more live streams that are going to be going in that direction, which is really, you are the one that understand the context, and you can be great at Java. You can be great at any programming language that you are great at. But if you don't contextually understand how that code is working and why you're building out the processes that you're not going to get it there. And that's one of the reasons digital adoption in construction has been so stuck.
Yeah, so I didn't learn to code. I almost did. I signed up for a coding class, and then 2 days later, I was like, that's a mistake because I'm not a coder. I don't need to go learn how to code. I need to find the person to do this with. Like I have to find somebody that's their bread and butter. And I ended up meeting Jared Yellen, who's the founder of Synduit, Project 10K. He's had a couple of exits. He's the tech side of things. And we had some great conversations, which led to him looking at me and saying, Ron, you are the guy. Like, let's go build this and let's do this. He's like, let's disrupt construction software and fix communication. And I was like, that's what I want to hear. That's right. And we are the people together to go do this. And that is how I ended up bringing the product to market. I just kept grinding it out until I found the person. And I just didn't accept no as being an answer to being able to build this software, just because.
All right, so let's get into it then. So if you had the answers and you then had the coder, where did you begin to start? Do you have anything you can show or talk about that's going to give us, more of at least a mental visual of how did you put the pieces together? I mean, there must have been a process in your head of the connection. You mentioned something because you start getting into politics. The guys on site don't want to be micromanaged, and yet you had to sort of be the orchestra leader. And in order to do that, you had to give them the song sheet, so to speak. So how did you build that song sheet?
So I had the PowerPoint presentation. I had some other stuff that I had put together on what I thought this software looked like. We got a really good project manager that understood what the vision was, and I spent a lot of time with them. I like to say that the biggest thing I learned to say in the development process of this and in the software word is no.
Good for you.
Because developers want to keep developing stuff. They want to keep over engineering stuff. And that's no flaw in their behalf. That's the nature of software, is we can always add something in there. We can always do this. We can always change this. And I just said no a lot. Anything that didn't align with like my vision around communication, I just said no to. Like, we're not here to be a full-fledged CRM. I don't want to have scheduling. I don't want to do the, like, we're not an Angie's List. So anything that didn't have alignment with what we were doing, I just said no to. And anytime we had anything that started to make stuff look like it was way more complicated, because one of my driving forces was like, if you can use Facebook, you should be able to use our software. Like, that's where our users live. So don't overcomplicate this. Keep it as simple and to the point as we possibly can. So in development, I just learned to say no. And the product became what it is out of that.
So let's talk about what was yes. Let's talk about the foundations, honestly, Ron, about what you decided. No, screw it. It's this, and that is what it is. So what are those 5 or 6 elements that you decided were foundational, and who do they affect, and who is the individual that once you sell out BuilderComs, who is actually using it and engaging with it? Can you get into those things?
Absolutely. So at the core, we are customer communication software. We get contractors and builders communicating with their client. We're completely web-based for contractors and builders, and we build out a mobile app for homeowners. So we get rid of all the emails, text messages, the Slack channels, the WhatsApp channels. We get everything in one place. And at the core, that is what I wanted this to be. And I wanted it to work as air traffic control. So we would get everybody, we direct that traffic. So when that homeowner goes in there and say they have a scheduling question, they're actually talking to the person that can answer that scheduling question. They're not talking to a sales rep. They're not talking to the project manager. They're actually talking to somebody that can answer their questions. And then what came from that is we also have to be able to transfer information. So we're going to have to do pictures, documents, videos, all of that kind of stuff in there. So the product evolved into being able to create this project database. I like to say we get all of this information in one place and we organize it per project. So when you click on that project, you now have all the pictures that are associated with it, all the documents that are associated with it, all the communication right there in one place. And your customer has this as well. So we create this transparency and this empowerment for homeowners to be able to reach out and ask questions.
So walk me through an onboarding. So you've got the customer. I love it. You've got the customer. That's who you're really thinking about. They're the one paying your bill. And they're the ones that are, I mean, I not too long ago, I was on a flight home and whatever. And this woman just arbitrarily sitting beside me bitched incessantly about contractors, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. We all know what it is. So the fact that you've got, I'm going to say, a bridge to that problem, let's tear it apart from their perspective. How do you give them BuilderComs, and how do you show them how they can then communicate with who they need to as far as their own project is concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's amazing is how stuff starts to become implemented. I built this as a tool for once the sale was made, because I'm an operations guy. Like, I was like, once that sale is done, boom, BuilderComs comes in. This is how everybody can communicate to get this project to completion. Then I start having users tell me, oh, you're wrong. This is a sales tool. So how it's being implemented and how people are introducing this to their customers now is in that sales process. From the very beginning, when they go out there, they let them know, hey, we use BuilderComs to communicate. You're going to get an email, you're going to download an app, and then all of our communication will go through BuilderComs. You won't have to worry about emails or text messages. I understand that communication is a concern of yours, as it is with every one of our customers. And that is why we made the decision to use BuilderComs to singleize that down. So you don't have to worry about it. And it gets you contact with the right people at our company. So that's what that introduction to the homeowners is looking like. And it's super clean, super easy. As soon as you create that project in there, that homeowner gets an email that ABC Contracting is using BuilderComs on your project. Don't go click this link, set up your password, and download our app, and boom, bada bang, you're in there. And it has that project. So when they download that app and log in, that project that you created in there is front and center for them to see.
Okay, so what kind of elements are you giving them to engage with? Is there a way that we can sort of, you talk about pictures. So if they're starting a project with ABC Contractor, what are the fields I'm going to say that's in that mobile app that they're going to see right away and that have either been populated by ABC or that they need to fill in?
Everything will be populated from ABC to begin with. So it'll have that project details in there. Any pictures that they have uploaded in there will be there. And then that homeowner clicks on that project. They see all of that stuff. They can go right into messaging, and then they see those channels of communication that I talked about, that air traffic control. So they're going to see sales. They're going to see scheduling. They're going to see that general project management channel. They're going to see that service channel. And no, those are what the channels where I communicate with people. What I guide guys on during the onboarding is to set up a message that when you create a project, each one of those channels, whoever's in charge of it, and if you're the main guy in charge of them all, send a message in each channel that explains who you are, what the channel is used for, so that homeowner knows, oh, if I have a project specific question, I go to this channel. If I have a scheduling question, I go to this channel. Like, don't just leave it up to, like, we've made this super simple, but don't just leave it up to the software. I'm a believer in human element and continuing to deliver that customer experience. BuilderComs is just a tool. It's just like a hammer. It's just like a
You're
shovel
singing my song, man.
on the
You're
job
exactly
site.
right. Yep.
This is just a tool to help you be more effective and more efficient at your job. So you're not chasing those emails and text messages. When you go to communicate with your homeowners, you go log into BuilderComs and you know it's all there. So you're not checking all these different channels of communication.
And so who on the sales side of ABC, so it's whoever has sold that particular project through, their name would be on that app and their details and how they would be, interacting with the customer, I would assume. And then what's most important, I would guess, is the project manager. I'm just trying to, again, paint a visual picture for our audience. And who else, at the very least, let's say a minimum from
So I highly recommend, so you can add on, like you said, the sales guys and everything, as well as foremen or crew guys that are going to be on site, because when you add them in there, they don't have access to all the communications, but what they have access to is the upload progress pictures and stuff during the project, or say, hey, we're on the way to the project. We'll be there in 15 minutes. Or my favorite, what I like to see is, hey, we wrapped up the project today. If you're leaving a key somewhere, where you left it, it's all in here. Here's a couple of pictures from the project. Boom, it goes in there. It's time stamped. It's documented. The customer has access to it. You have access to it as a company. You know what's happening on these projects, and everybody knows what's happening, and you're creating a documentation trail of what's happening on the project. So you can have different moving pieces with different people. I've even had guys bring in their subs and put them on as a crew guy so they can put those pictures of that finished work in there. So they don't have access to everything, but they have access to upload those pictures to that project. And it starts to become this place where that project data, the communication, the pictures, the videos, any of the documents are right there. You have access to it. Your customer has access to it.
So I guess it's really important that at your onboarding stage with the internal team at ABC Contractor, that they understand the robust reason for the communications. What happens when communication breaks down? Is there anybody going, this app, I tried, I sent an email, nothing happened, I didn't hear from the guy. What do you do to really color out the experience?
So we have, from our end of it, is we have an onboarding specialist that is who you get handed off to once you're a BuilderComs client. And we're going to walk hand in hand with you through this journey and your homeowners as we develop this relationship and develop how our software can best utilize you. Communication breakdowns, when you look at it from a perspective of, say, a P&L, Like, what line items does communication affect? And there's a couple of them that I have felt firsthand. And the first one's going to be accounts receivable. Is how much money have you not been paid because communication is broken down on a project? And then that money just stays out there. The second is going to be go backs or service calls. How many times do you go fix something on a job site that costs you money to your bottom line that could have been done the first time if you had appropriate communication with that customer, if you guys were talking, or if you had documentation? So that's how I start to think about this, is where are we bleeding because of our communication? Because we've just let it be acceptable. We know it's the elephant in the room when it comes to the construction industry. We're just like, hey, communication's bad. It's the construction industry. So, okay, have that mentality about it. But then let's also talk about, where's your customer bleeding, or where's your business bleeding money because of that mentality? And then, are your customers really coming back to you? You think they're telling their neighbors and friends to do business with you? So I think there's a lot of monetary factors that come into communication that we don't take serious, we don't think about, because we just can have a tendency to be like, there's unlimited work out there. And what we should be doing, and what I advocate for, not just with BuilderComs, but around the construction industry, is changing the mindset around it and moving us into the top tier levels. I believe there's no reason why the construction industry isn't being used in the same breath as doctors and lawyers, and construction should be right there in my mind.
For sure, for sure. But I mean, I also like your approach that you took a very specific thing and you cured for it. You understood that, bells and whistles don't really matter, and they matter, I think, even less in construction, because the focus is on the build. It's not on the tool that you and I both agree these things are. So I'm interested in knowing, so you've designed this for a certain kind of build. Is that fair? It's for residential builds. You say you were running 100 projects in your own business. How many projects could BuilderComs handle? Is that infinite?
So we haven't had it broken from a project's perspective yet. So I challenge anybody to come and put on as many projects as you can, and we'll see what it can take. But we haven't had any issues yet with the amount of projects being run through it. We're in the process of bringing on a company that does do 150 to 200 projects a month.
Okay.
So we're going to see. Like, I have full confidence in what we have built to be able to handle that. But the great thing is if it breaks, you can fix software a lot faster than you can fix a house.
And that's a t-shirt they get at the end of the successful project. Thank you very much, BuilderComs.
To speak on about like staying focused on fixing the specific problem is, in my research, in my just diving into the construction industry, is one of the things that I found was, there's great scheduling softwares out there. There's great softwares that do the financing aspect. You have all these elements, but where everything fell short was that communication. But what people do is they go out and they try to build some across the board solution to everything, and it becomes very lackluster. And I'm committed to this, and I'm committed to staying in my lane. I will build out partnerships and integration for everything else, because I think that's the only thing that makes sense. Like, there's people that already do that stuff great. This was where the downfall in most construction management or project management software happens, is with that client interaction, with that communication piece. And that's why it's the hardest thing to do in software. I've been told that from the big dogs, the legacy players, that like they don't want to have to build out communication software. because you have to get the homeowner buy-in, you have to get the contractor and builders buy-in to make it work. But shouldn't we be trying to do what's hard and fix the actual problems instead of just putting out solutions that don't, that we're only trying to drive the bottom line or the revenue. We're not trying to have any impact. I'm trying to change how the construction industry communicates. Like, that's my
Well, that's
mission.
because you're one of them. I mean, but that is, again, why I exist and why Intelligent Construction Opportunities exists is because there is that gap of context. You were there, specifically who it hits. And the thing I find very smart about your approach is you've gone right after ABC contracting sales department. So it's already woven in to the process of their onboarding with that project. It is not like, okay, now we've sold it. Okay, ABC Contracting has it now. Okay, we're going to onboard you guys, and then you guys can onboard your customers. It's another step in that doesn't have to happen, and these are where the cultural shifts are going to happen with technology. Is as long as they are put in the process, and for me, my mantra is right tool, right time. And this is exactly what this is. It's right tool, right time. And that's what it has to be. So I just have one closing question before we go and kick off the rest of our Saturdays here. But where is AI in anything you're doing? What do you see it helping to aid this particular focus on communications?
Absolutely. I think what we have in the pipeline to do with AI is, in my mind, going to forever change communication and how people talk. And it has nothing to do with automations. My goal is to be, like I said, be a tool to help guys be the best communicator they possibly can be. And we're going to integrate AI into that with that in mind. So it's going to work alongside and make contractors and builders just better communicators, because we're going to give them a tool to help them communicate with their customers. And then we're going to integrate the ability to have a tool that makes them better communicators, that cleans everything up for them. I feel like that is where one of the biggest upsides and potentials for the AI use case for anything, because
So
everybody's
can
looking
you give
at
us an
AI
example, a little fleck of fairy dust that's on your
so just
roadmap?
think about if you were like able to just, when your customers' communication came in, if you were on the spot able to label that red light, yellow light, green light, if that message came in color coded on temperament and it picked up on stuff you don't even pick up on. So you can have a homeowner that's sending a message at how you read it as they're happy, but it might be red or yellow because of that temperament coming in. You're going to address that situation differently. What if we can start helping you that way? Or what if we can start helping you craft your messages better? So that's how I look at how AI is going to be integrated with what we're doing. Is it's going to be a tool within the tool to help you be better at your job, at your communication aspect of things. And it's not going to be all this automation. So don't come to Ron Newsbaum if you want automation in your communication, because what we're doing is fixing the customer communication piece, and automation will never fix that. A lot of
Well
times
done.
it's
Well
probably going to
said,
make it worse.
Nussbaum. Well said. Well said. And again, it gets back to it's a tool. And somebody said to me recently about them feeling that the culture on construction sites was being lost a little bit because everybody had an app or an iPhone in front of them, or some iPad or whatever. And they are right. I mean, in order to get the building up whatever the building, or repaired or restored, which is, to my understanding, is at least 60% of all projects are restoration. They are not new builds. You have to maintain the collegial culture. We know people in our networks, both you and I, Ron, that are working very hard at building out I'll say, the cultural context that needs repairing, the respect for one another, et cetera, that plays beautifully into this kind of application, which then affords the tool to automate those parts of the natural communication. And that's it. I mean, if it is not all aligned and there is a broken link, the broken link needs to be looked at and analyzed and fixed, but only within the context, again, of the people using it and the outcome of what they're trying to do. And in this case, build houses. So anyway, I want to say well done. To me, your head's screwed on very tight because you're very focused. No, but you're very focused, Ron, and that's a compliment. You are not trying to be all things to all people, and that just spells future success to me. So I want to thank you again for taking your time and answering my questions, and sharing with the audience what you have. I think it gives people a bigger scope of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. And you can't ask for better than that. So is there anything else you want to leave behind with the audience today before we close her up?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me on the show today. And I just thought of this because this is something that you're doing as well as myself. And I heard this analogy about the sheep and wolves and sheepdogs. And it was completely different than what I'm about ready to use it in. Is with construction software for too many years is we've had a lot of wolves. When you think of the construction industry as a bunch of sheep, when it come, and I don't mean this in any kind of way other than my analogy, like it's not that the construction industry is a bunch of sheep, but when it's come to software, we have just had a bunch of wolves that were there to just take for years. And you got to have some sheepdogs. And that's how I feel like that's where I'm at, is I'm here to not just disrupt communication in construction. Is I want to disrupt how construction software is built and how it's implemented as well, and start protecting the industry from all these other companies. And I feel that you're trying to do the same, Stephanie.
That's
And
absolutely right. That's
want people
absolutely
to,
right.
and I want people to think about that. Is you're
And it's
going to
not
have
malicious. It's not malicious, Ron. What it is a disconnect. It's like any one of us. You can be formally educated or less formally educated, and you tend to learn what you learn. And then you come out into the world and you bring that to the world. Well, it only makes sense that somebody that has studied computer programming and got really good at writing languages and what if statements and what have you, pardon that little pun, but the point is they are good at what they are good at, but they don't contextually understand how to apply that code to the very processes that you have described at the top of this interview today. And that's just, it's not a malicious thing, but it does mean that now folks like yourself have to get in there and start going, no, actually, you're kind of right, but it's actually more of this.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that's what it is.
and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think like that's where the pushback happens, is we're different than most people on the software side of things. And that is why there's magic in what we're doing, is because I'm not a software guy. I'm just a Marine that spent 13 years in construction, and now I'm here to fix this. And that's why I'm so focused on a singular problem, because I know guys that have built out other great solutions that we're going to integrate with, and we are going to disrupt how construction software is built, create this environment where it's more a la carte than just across the board take it or leave it. And I appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, you're very, very welcome. Stay on after we end today, and we'll get maybe some next steps in. And again, can't thank you enough. I think you're very articulate, and I think you've to me, you've created a very good tool that deserves its own pocket in the tool belt. So thanks again, Ron.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to connect with Ron, they can find you at www.BuilderComs. That's COMS. I noticed there was another one out there with a similar name, but be careful. It's BuilderComs with one M, and it's plural.com, and you'll get a hold of Ron, or otherwise you can easily reach him through LinkedIn. All right. We'll see you on the other side. Thanks, everybody who stopped in today, and obviously the recording will be available.